Mr. Brett Phipps,
Yeah.
welcome to this week's Video Gamer Picks, where we are going stereotypical on your ass, and we're doing the best first-person shooters in games.
I'm so glad you didn't go with other forms of stereotype.
Yeah, exactly.
The top 10.
The
and I would've
usual
been in trouble.
disclaimer, if you stumbled across this video through Google or YouTube search, it's not actually the 10 best games ever, or 11 in this case. It's just some shooting games that we like and it's fun to talk about, and then you can go, you left this one out in the comments, and we all feel good.
10 Call of Duties and 1 Battlefield.
There is 2 Call of Duties in this list.
It has to be. It has to be.
I'm intrigued. I mean, again, I put this list together. Brett's just here to look at me. He's here to be your ears and eyes and mouths and go, Miller, you fucking idiot.
React with shock and gasp.
But we're starting with my favourite first-person shooter of all time. I say, not 100% sure that's true.
Right, until we get further down the list.
It'd be no one's favourite Call of Duty. It's before the Call of Duty boom. It's before Call of Duty came and took over games. It's my favourite Call of Duty game. It's Call of Duty 2.
A lot of people love 2.
No, the last World War II game was World at War.
Yeah, a lot of people love 2.
Well, 2, I think 2 works in my favour just through context. I just had Xbox 360. It looked really great at the time. It did have online functionality, which, you know, the 360 made it so much easier than ever.
Yeah.
So you thought, oh, I'm just going to pop on and play Call of Duty 2. And it was just, I'm sure if I played it today, I'd go, no, this is almost unplayable. But at the time, and also because like the original Call of Duty obviously was such a PC only, like we were playing Medal of Honor up to that point.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, my first one of the, actually, I'm going to throw that in here as well, Medal of Honor Frontline I loved too, just as an aside.
Yeah.
But we were all playing those games, then Call of Duty 2 came along and it was like, oh no, wait. This is better than the other ones.
That's the thing, that it was a complete turnaround, because I remember, like you say, Medal of Honor on the PS2, Storming the Beach, that was one of the most memorable moments for me on the PS2 generation. You had like Freedom Fighters, I think, was one of the third-person shooters.
Yes, it was.
Call of Duty Big Red one, you played it, but it was sort of like
I liked Call of
FIFA
Duty.
PES type thing.
It was.
I enjoyed it.
I like Call of Duty 2 Big Red one. I think that's the one I played. No, I played another one. I played Finest Hour.
Finest Hour,
because,
yeah.
And it wasn't made by, you know, it's made by some offshoot company, I think.
Yeah.
But it was that kind of, at that point, those games didn't feel, on console at least anyway, didn't feel like, oh, I don't need another one of these. It was just kind of like, I want more. I want to play these games.
I think another reason why I loved them so much was that my granddad played those games. That was
Did
how
he really?
he played Frontline. He loved Medal of Honor as
Yeah.
well, and that was what, like, at that time, it was such an attachment thing. But a lot of people, the reason why they love Call of Duty, like I said, is that time, the new console. I had that with 3, not because of the game itself, but when the 360 came out, I was so staunchly defending. Nope, PlayStation's going to come out. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to worry. Don't worry. I'm going
You're
to
that
wait.
guy.
I'm going to wait. I was only, I've been like 13, 14, and then you get the news that it cost more than some limbs
house.
do. Yeah.
Get 2 jobs, Brett. That's
And
what
then,
I
you,
told
and
to
then
do.
you have a little cry and you think, that's it, I'm going to get a... And when they announced the price, it was just for my birthday. So I thought, okay, Xbox, and then Call of Duty 3. And it starts in Russia, if I remember rightly, number 3.
I didn't like 3, so
Exactly, a lot of people won't, but again, that is your 2 moment, was
exactly.
same for 3.
And it does, you know, Call of Duty has become this huge brand now, but every time I look back, I get the fondest memories
From 2.
thinking about 2. Obviously, as we transition, the most innovative, which, and the most one that deserves all the praise for what we now live in today, is Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which did genuinely change the industry. If this was wrestling, this would be like Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. It genuinely is a point in the video game business where you can look back at it and go, that changed everything.
You did.
Because I can remember there was a time when platformers and RPGs were your kind of front runners games. I mean, shooters were popular, but I'd argue on console anyway, I'm sure somebody will disagree, but I would argue that that is the game that pushed, you know, first-person shooter games into just crazy levels that I don't think anyone ever suspected.
That system as well, let alone the game, but the unlock system.
That's what you've got to talk about. Like, it's all well and good to roll your eyes at it now, but at the time, it was really original, it was really clever, and it was really addictive. That's why it got so well. It's like, oh man, yeah, I got to keep... It was like an RPG when you're leveling up.
You know
I
what
got to keep going.
Back then, and I don't know why this changed, but back then it was 10 points for a kill. Sometimes you earned 1 XP for something. And then now it was like, oh, now there's a new game out, we've got to earn 100 XP for kills. It was that thing of constantly having to ramp it up. But what I loved about, I don't know, it's that context thing where the best thing about Modern Warfare for me is I had so much time to play it. I was a teenager, I had so much free time.
But I think that's what a lot of people did, and I think that's why it blew up as much as it did.
Yeah.
Because all these kids that probably shouldn't have been playing it were finding it. Now they've grown up with it.
Best story as well, best single player.
It's like we grew up with Mario games. A lot of people growing up with Call of Duty games.
And
it's addictive. That's the thing. It is addictive.
Oh,
you can sink your teeth and go, man, this is good.
Yeah.
You know, so you can understand why it does so well.
And the things they've introduced since then to make you work yourself into that progression system more, like seeing the gun that killed you last or the gun that continues to kill you. It's that replay,
Dangling carrot.
kill cam and everything. It's just, oh,
It is. It's genuinely like, you know, there's always a reason why I got to get that guy now. You know, I got to get that guy. It's become somewhat of a parody given how awful it is online and you know the things that get shouted at. But that, if taking all that outside, taking humans out of the equation, I don't think you could ever have one of these lists with that. I mean, and the single player was good too. I mean, it was a bit overly long. But it had some really cool set pieces in it, and it was kind of that first Call of Duty game to really go bombastic and Michael Bay-ish, and it pulled it off effortlessly. Like, I really think it did a great job.
Again, because they didn't have to worry about repeating previous attempts or previous storylines, they could do whatever they wanted. And they say it was a Michael Bay plotline. And there was I remember that moment where is it in the White House where you've got to run and get the flare to tell them to abandon the airstrike?
Modern Warfare 2, I can't remember now. They all blend into one now.
In Call of Duty, was it Modern Warfare where you actually die as well as a character in the plane crash?
Of course, yeah, the nuke goes off, and you're going into helicopter, and you die. It's cool. It's also the bit with the, I always forget the name of it, the AC-32 or the...
AC-130.
AC-130,
oh, yeah. Oh.
Which is, that bit, to this day, I think that to me was always more controversial than the no Russian bit.
Yeah, because
that was just war. That is war. That's what it's like. You see a dot on the screen and you shoot it. But it depends how you look at it. You could see it as gratuitous, or you could see it as, you know, games opening. That, you know, it being asking questions that aren't necessarily answered. We go back in time now because you can't have this list without talking about this game. You already know what it is.
Yeah,
I know what it is. Obviously, I've got the list. They out there know what it is. Doom.
Yeah.
I don't even know what we can say about Doom.
I still play it.
Everyone still plays it because that's the whole point. Is that it's just. It works.
Yeah.
And it does. It's like Tetris. It is the shooting world of Tetris.
It is.
You can go back to it, and as soon as you kind of understand its fundamentals and how it works, there's always something there for you to throw yourself into.
Yeah.
Especially like if you want to speedrun it as well. It's oddly fun to speedrun.
Yeah, no game can run at that speed. No shooting game could ever run at that speed.
And obviously there's been better versions like Ultimate Doom and, you know, and the new one that some guy released.
Brutal Doom.
Brutal Doom, that's right. I would implore anyone, if you haven't, even if you're sort of just finding video games and you've never played Doom, go play Doom.
Yeah.
Because Americ came out 30 years? A long time ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
It is scary to think how old that game is. Like, it's that thing, like you're saying, no matter who comes to games, you always say just play a bit of Doom. Just to see. And it's not even about. I remember there was a talk going on at an expo, and it was the guys from Dishonored, and they talked about their approach to level design. And even those guys, it's a completely different genre. They said rather than do the Call of Duty approach, for example, is where you walk down a corridor, enemies keep coming until you push forward. They said go Doom, where everything is open to you and you just need to find what you need to get forward.
I don't know this, and as we transition into the next game, I would argue that Halo probably took some, because Halo is like that. Halo builds you miniature playgrounds. It's not open world.
Yeah.
But the kind of the battles you find yourself in do allow you to, you know, you don't have to, it's not corridors. You do find yourself in these miniature open spaces. I don't know this for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me if Bungie, Doom's like that. You know,
yeah,
Doom,
exactly.
You can create space for yourself. Yeah. Even when it's not necessarily within where you would shoot. That doesn't make any sense. But Halo does that. I mean, Halo probably does that the best out of all these games. Is that it's not an open world shooter, but any time you come up against, you know, numerous or multiple enemies, you are given the space to maneuver, to move around, to plan a strategy. It's not just walk forward and shoot. And if you get it wrong, you're going to die.
It's
this
probably
is Combat Evolved, if anyone's into the first one.
Yeah, it has to be.
I still think it's the best one.
It is the best one. And it reminds me, only because I've only just recently completed it, it's like a shooting version of Until Dawn, where you get plot in a very narrow structure.
Yeah, it is a bit like
then
that.
it opens up player choice, and then it funnels itself back in to give you some exposition, some plot, and then it opens back up for combat, and then closes you back in. So I love the way they do that, where it's not, it very delicately paces it as well. There's always a sense of, you've always got something different to do with how you approach the combat.
There is corridor stuff in Halo, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
The game starts in that spaceship, which is just a corridor. But I do think, you know, when it does open its wings, for lack of a better term, it does become very unique. And
that was the massive moment, though, wasn't it? Was you was playing it as you expected a shooter to behave, and then you land that ship and everything is open. You just go.
You go nuts. And also, you cannot, again, talk about Halo without saying it is the one that... Why are they so popular today? Because Halo popped down. I remember again in 2001 when Halo came out, it was like, you can't make a first-person shooter, I can't say it won't work. Yeah, you can. Yeah. And now, I'd imagine more people playing first-person shooters on consoles than they are PC. That's probably a really controversial statement, but I'm pretty confident that was the case.
They're very particular kinds of PC shooters that wouldn't, like Counter-Strike.
But I mean, Halo started all of that.
Yeah,
Halo
exactly.
started, you know, Call of Duty Modern Warfare may have blown it up. But
very
Halo
definitive
definitely...
console shooters, where it's very much a case of, even Halo doesn't do it, but like aim down sights, slow movement, whereas PC games are always like the Doom approach, fast, get around, shoot very quick.
Right. The next game, I don't agree with. I wouldn't put it in this list.
Your list.
But I've done it because I've succumbed to public and popular demand. I don't usually do that, but I thought, you know, you've got to give a little something. And it's Half-Life 2. Now,
right.
I think Half-Life 2 is overrated. I think it had a huge impact on the industry with its gravity gun and all the things that it did, given story and all that kind of stuff. But I don't like the game. I think the game is bloated. I think it's long. I don't think it's that fun. I just don't.
Yeah, I agree with you, to be honest.
Oh, well, there we go. I thought you were going to defend it.
No,
so.
I can't, because I remember when I first got a gaming PC, one of the first things, obviously, you play a bit of is Half-Life, and I played it, and I just thought, there's too much vacant space. There's too much of nothing to do in this game. It didn't feel like a shooter to me. It felt like a very limited RPG, and I don't know why that was. I felt like there was a lot of time spent doing nothing.
It felt empty to me.
Yeah, exactly.
People like saying, "Oh, I pasted myself onto Gordon Freeman," but I didn't. I just found like a very shallow, boring character that I didn't like playing as.
Yeah.
And all the characters around him were good. I mean, the best Half-Life game is Half-Life 2 Episode 2.
Yeah.
It's full of characterization and the story's great, and you've got some great set pieces. But in Half-Life 2, I just feel bored being that guy, and just so much. I usually like really methodical and slow-paced games, and Half-Life 2 does do that. And I'm sure that's the reason the ones I've liked, I'm sure, have been inspired by that. But I just don't think it does it as well as some people think in Half-Life 2. I know this is sacrilegious to say, and their heads are just bursting, and their arms and limbs are falling off. But hey, I can't help how I feel, man.
Yeah, and neither can they as their limbs fall off.
I don't know how people feel about this game being in this list, but it's a first-person shooter as far as I'm concerned. It just happens to have the best atmosphere of any video game ever, which is BioShock.
Oh. Right, I was wondering what you was going to say.
Well,
then.
It's
BioShock has to be in there.
To me, I almost class it as a genre unto itself.
Yeah.
I think it's so unique. I think BioShock 2 is a better game, but given when BioShock, I know people say it's like System Shock, and I get that, but I hadn't played the System Shock game, so when I came to BioShock, it did feel incredibly new and original and fresh. And the first 2 hours of that game are I think they're perfect.
Yeah.
From just the confusion that you have.
Yeah.
And the sheer intrigue about what is going on, what is happening, and then it's just on edge. You're on edge until you kind of settle into a pattern and you understand how Rapture works. It is really scary because it feels like you and the person, because you don't know who you are, you don't know why you're there, you don't know what this place is.
And you don't see any of the things that you're fighting.
You and the character are finding this stuff out at the same time.
Yeah.
So, complete emphasis to Gordon Freeman. You can apply yourself to this guy. It's like, what is this place? I'd say the shooting probably isn't the best shooting you'll ever play in a game. But taking all of its parts and putting it together, it's just, to this day, I mean, it's 2007 it came out, I believe. It's almost a decade on, and it's still fascinating. I don't think anything's come close to matching it in what it tried to do.
I think that, like you say, even games that don't have superb shooting mechanics, like the Twitch, as long as they have a good sense of heft to them, like the shooting feels solid, there's a great sound design to every gun.
Yeah.
I think that's enough to overcompensate what is, like you say, a lackluster elsewhere in terms of actual mechanics. And I think BioShock does that really well. It has every gun has weight to it. What are they called? The magic things you got in your other hand. Plasmids, yes. So it all combined really well. And it was terrifying because the lighting was so good, especially on a 360 where you were stood under a spotlight and you couldn't see the enemy that you were attacking. It met you in that same light and it looked horrendous. It was genuinely unsettling to look at the masquerade mask that was disfigured. And
there's so many bits in that game which are grotesque and it finishes very badly. The last hour and a half of that game is real letdown.
But it's very rare that there's a shooting game where you're fighting people or any adversary where it's genuinely better than you. Like you had that with the Big Daddy. That's very rare.
You had to outwit it.
Yeah.
I really like that feeling of, this guy can take me down easily. He is more powerful than I am.
Yeah, I can't think of another experience. There's obviously boss fights where you have to think of something different other than just keep shooting it. But throughout the whole game, you felt like, I can get by with people like me, but there is always something around the corner that if I see it, I have to
be
run.
prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really think it's a fantastic game, and I don't really like scary games. I do think that's a scary game, but fantastic. Now we're going old school now. We're turning that clock, not as far as Doom, but a lot of people roll their eyes now when they say this because they're 14-year-old numpties and they don't understand. With GoldenEye, 007, Nintendo 64.
Unplayable now, but at the time.
Unplayable now, literally a mess.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you the hours I spent on looking at the same screen. Four different screens in multiplayer, looking in the middle of the screen because I knew the level so well I could just kind of see where everyone was and go and kill them.
Yeah.
Man with a golden gun. Trevelyan, he was my character. Don't play his odd job, it's not fair. It's just fantastic. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And the control scheme may have been nuts on the N64 control banana thing, but it's a wonderful video game. And the problem with it now is there's no way for you to know.
That's
if you weren't there when it was popular and it hadn't aged horribly, you'll never understand. And I understand that. I wouldn't understand, but there's no YouTube video or anything that can actually explain why that game was so good.
Yeah, because there wasn't anything like it before or even since on that console either. You had to play GoldenEye if you wanted that experience.
And don't forget they delayed it. It came out, I think.
Did they?
I think maybe 2 years after the film. Maybe it was just a year. But
it was after the film.
It was definitely a long time after. You could not kill. I mean, it was a film tie-in, but it was not a film tie-in. It didn't tie into the film. And no one does that ever. I mean, we don't really get film tie-ins anymore, but especially back then, it came out day and date. So you saw the movie, you felt pumped, you bought the game.
The campaign was solid as well.
A lot of people forget to it as well. The depth was incredible.
Problem is, I was a bit too young to enjoy it. I couldn't go around a friend's house and just play multiplayer all night because I was only, when did it come out, 98?
97.
I was
no, it is 98.
So I
don't know.
I was 8 years old, but I still played GoldenEye. I played the campaign, and that, even though you know the plot of the film, it's a sense of not knowing how they're going to approach it. Like, there's that moment in the first mission where you're blowing up the tankers with the watch mines. It made you feel like Bond. You had these gadgets and stuff, and it was so good. And then you jump off the dam. And
everyone remembers that,
and then you like even first discovering the new weapons in because it has a great amount of weapons as well. Like you get the sniper for the design of the weapons. You look at them. The sniper rifle looked like a bit of guttering on top of a plank of wood.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I loved the Kasparovs though. No, not Kasparov. What were they called?
The Klops or whatever they were.
Yeah, Klops.
I hated those guns. They were the worst. I think it was called the Klops, but something
they were
like
called
that.
the Klops because they were named after the Killer Instinct guy.
Oh, of course they were. Yeah, no, I hated them. I hated the worst guns.
The white, not the Desert Eagles, but the white pistols and the Water PP7. Oh, the guns were. I couldn't name another gun in a game other than GoldenEye.
That's fine. That's so good. I'm not sure how many people after this each one now, but I do think some of these choice people go, "How dare you?" This to me is one of the best games ever made. Hence why I have to put it in here. And it's not a first-person shooter in the genre sense, but you are first-person shooting. You know, that is what you're doing, and melee attacking. It's Left 4 Dead.
Yes.
Now, Left 4 Dead.
Best multiplayer.
A lot of people
shooting.
put Left 4 Dead 2 saying it's better. I just don't think it is. I think the level design, I just think the way
Left
the
4 Dead 2
AI
didn't feel the same.
It didn't. I just think the AI works. It's just better in the first game.
The co-op experience in Left 4 Dead is the best.
I mean, you can still play that now, and I would implore anyone to go back and play it now because the way that AI director works and the way it figures out how you're playing and ensures you've always got the challenge you're not expecting to happen is genius. I remember that one of my favourite memories of all games, I was playing with 3 mates, we were online, and I was shouting. I still believe that somehow Left 4 Dead can hear you. I was shouting at my mate, going, "You're ruining it, you're being held behind." Like, he got caught by I can't remember the names of the zombies.
One of the tongue that grabs you.
That's right, yeah. And I shot him down, went, "Don't do it again." Straight away, boom. I got taken and pulled back. I was like, shit, I've been let down. But it was just so much fun. And trying to get into that safe room with 4 people was just...
Yeah.
Oh, man, it doesn't age. It doesn't age.
A friend of mine, because I didn't have a PC, so I tried playing on Xbox, wasn't the same, and then I got a PC recently. And a friend of mine, me and her, we tried playing through one of the missions. I think it was on 2, though.
Yeah.
And then there's that, it was in the mall section. That was the climactic moment.
Best.
We had the car and everything. And we were
So
both sat,
good.
and she was a lot better at Left 4 Dead than me because I was playing on a PC, not very good with mouse and keyboard. And there was so many moments, like you say, the bosses with the tongue, or the one that jumps on your back, and that, you're so close to making it, where you got to get the fuel to the car. I was like, right, I'll throw them down to you, and then you throw one, it bounces off and lands on another floor. Oh, it's just absolute chaos, but it's so good to play.
It's brilliant. And I never really... I mean, I did feel overwhelmed, but I always felt like it was in my control. If you're by yourself, you're like, well, I'm screwed. If you had a team there and you could be strategic enough, you could always find a way through it.
Yeah.
And when you got in that safe room at the last minute when you were about to die, it's like, and close the door on someone else, like, screw you. So, I mean, go play. I couldn't... In fact, everything on this list, I would say, go play Left 4 Dead before anything else, because it still holds up. It hasn't aged that much. Right, we finish... no, we don't finish. What we're talking about, we've got 2 ones we're going to throw together because they're ones that are going to make people mad. We finished with the granddaddy of them all, Quake. Not much to say about Quake, but that alongside Doom...
Doom's 3D brother.
Exactly. You're not going to be here, about Quake. We probably should throw Wolfenstein in there as well, actually.
Yeah,
because without those 3 games, they are if you don't know, the foundations of first-person shooters. If you don't have them, you don't have video games today. Also, Quake as well. I mean, LAN parties. That's where online multiplayer started. You go around, you all plug up, and you play Quake for 2 days and you feel terrible about life.
The thought of having to carry a PC around to a friend's house.
I know.
I mean, carrying a GameCube that had a handle on it was still a
now people
burden.
just take their pad to somebody's house.
Yeah.
We're all assholes. Right, the 2 games we finished with are newer games, which means instantly people are like, you can't mention them. I haven't really played either of them, but what little I have played, I can understand why people like them. And it's Titanfall and it's Bulletstorm.
Yeah.
Titanfall is just, I think most people agreed that was a shooter that came along last year and people loved it.
I think the best thing you can say about Titanfall is that since it came out, 2 games have tried to do what it did and
haven't done it as well.
failed. Because the thing is, the vertical climbing element, Titanfall did it beautifully because it understood that that was the fundamental mechanic in its entire system. Therefore, every piece of level design fit around that system. There was never an invisible wall that you got stuck on. You could get on every roof, getting in the window. If you couldn't get somewhere, it was because it was out of reach, not because the game said, no, you're not allowed here. And that's the problem that Advanced Warfare suffered with, and it looks like that's what Black Ops 3 is going to suffer with, because when I played the beta of that, there was so many instances where my character was able to get to a certain level, but the game said, no, there was an invisible wall, and that leaves you vulnerable. I never felt vulnerable playing Titanfall because of the level design. It was always my own fault. If I failed to make a jump...
That's it. Again, it's that kind of Modern Warfare thing that they come up with an idea and they've mastered it.
Exactly.
Straight away, you can still tweak it and make it better.
Because they didn't steal it. It's theirs. It was something that they built from the ground up, whereas other people would look at it and think, oh, God, that is a good idea. Let's try and put it into what we've already got.
Exactly.
But they started from the ground up.
A lot of people say there's not a lot of chat about Titanfall because it doesn't come out yearly.
Yeah.
There's still quite a large community playing Titanfall and more than happy to just sit there and wait for the next one to come out.
It's diminished drastically, though, and that's a big shame. It'd be...
Well, it's because Call of Duty's the king.
Yeah.
That's why. But there's still a solid. You can still go on there and play games till the cows come home and feel alright about it. And there's Bulletstorm, again, where you kick people in the nuts and stuff.
Yeah, and that felt like an attitude-driven first-person shooter, something that it was like Gears' idiot younger brother.
Yeah, it was fun. Like I did enjoy Bulletstorm. I just thought it was like a one and done. You kind of play through it, you enjoy it. It's got some great moments. Like the way you could combo stuff together was cool.
Whip and
when you
everything.
finish, you're like, all right, that's that then.
Yeah, and it was so fun when you ran through it, but like I know what you mean. It's unsustainable for what it felt like. Reminds me of Sunset Overdrive in that sense of you enjoy it, but it's a bit overwhelming. You can't put up with it for long stints because it's once you get into the actual game, it's madness and it's great fun. But it's all because they have to put these personas into it and build that identity.
I mean, it's juvenile, but it's quite funny at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, you're feeling a bit silly one day. You play Bulletstorm, you'll probably laugh. And that's that.
Yeah,
I do have
one honourable mention though.
That was your honourable mention, Bulletstorm.
I know it was, but I just thought of another one, and I know a lot of people hate this game, but I can't think of many before that had the destruction in environment, and that was Black on PS2.
No, I like Black. No, but I think within context, Black in its time was it felt big.
Yeah,
it felt like it was going to be. It was a big deal. A lot of people like that game.
And there was that thing where if there was an enemy behind something, like a concrete wall,
the gravestone stuff, you could shoot through them. Yeah. No, Black was cool.
Yeah.
Black was cool. I mean, it needed a sequel, which it got a lot of years later. Body Count was the worst game ever.
Oh God,
spiritual sequel. But no, Black deserves a shout out. It just got one. On VideoGamer picks the best FPS games.